Let's start with a tribe from the Native American tribes called the Osage tribe. This tribe, like other Native American tribes, was forced to leave their land during the war with the settlers. However, the people of this particular tribe were very fortunate because they accidentally discovered a large amount of oil in their new land. Since then, the people of the tribe became very wealthy. They leased their land to a group of white individuals to extract the oil from it. As a result, the living standards of the tribe became very good to the point where they had a large number of white people working for them. However, a problem arose. The members of the Osage tribe did not have the ability to manage their vast wealth, so they had to rely on white individuals to help them. Each member of the tribe had a close white person to supervise their financial affairs. Consequently, the tribe members were able to buy expensive jewelry and drive luxurious cars. A group of white individuals became allies of the Osage tribe, considering themselves as protectors of the tribe's wealth. The biggest ally of the Osage tribe was a person named Hill, who had been living with the tribe even before they discovered the oil in their land. Hill decided to buy a large amount of land and used it for agriculture. He also helped the tribe in establishing schools and hospitals. At that time, the tribe gave him the title Friend of the Osage because he had a very positive influence on their community. One day, a young man named Ernest arrived at the tribe. Ernest was Hill's nephew, who had just finished his military service and was going to live with his uncle. As soon as Ernest arrived, a person named Henry from the tribe welcomed him and introduced himself. Henry informed Ernest that he would take him to his uncle's house. There, Hill welcomed Ernest and introduced him to his brother Byron, who was also living in their uncle's house. Then, Hill introduced Ernest to his wife and daughter, and they all entered the house. Hill had a conversation with Ernest, telling him about the people of the tribe and mentioning that they were very kind people. However, he also mentioned that many of them suffer from diseases and die. Hill told Ernest that he worked in agriculture and knew that one day the oil in their land would run out. After that, the village residents won't find any source of income, and Ernest explains to him that there are rules he must follow in order to live with the tribe here. He mentions that there are many occupiers and scammers in the town and asks him to stay away from any trouble completely. Ernest tells Hill that there have been many killings of tribe members, and he gives him a book about the Osage tribe that contains more information about them. Hill tells Ernest that from tomorrow, he will provide him with a car to work as a driver so he can earn money and build his future. The next day, one of the tribe members named Molly is at the mayor's office, requesting permission from the mayor to withdraw an additional amount of money from her funds. She wants to buy medicine for her sick mother and herself because she suffers from diabetes. At that time, Ernest is standing outside the mayor's office in his taxi, and as soon as he sees Molly leaving the mayor's office, he runs towards her and offers her a ride home. Molly agrees and gets into the car with him. From that moment on, Molly becomes a regular customer of Ernest's, and after a few days, Ernest tells his uncle Hill about Molly and informs him that he is attracted to her and she is also attracted to him. Hill tells him that Molly told him that they have a lot of properties and a lot of money that she will inherit after her sick mother's death. He tells Ernest that many women from the tribe married American men so that their husbands could be the supervisors of their properties, instead of strangers. Hill suggests that Ernest should do the same and marry Molly, understanding that after her mother's death, they could gain control over her inheritance. Hill tells Ernest that it is a very good investment and completely legal. The next day, Ernest is with Molly and starts sweet-talking her, but it becomes evident that he talks too much. At night, Ernest sneaks out with his brother Byron and another person named Blackie, wearing disguises, and they go to steal from a wealthy couple in the village. The next day, Ernest drops Molly off at her house and they are surprised to find a dinner waiting for them. While they are having dinner, Ernest learns from Molly that she suffers from diabetes and has specific food she needs to eat. Ernest goes to the church with Molly the following day and meets Sammy, Molly's sister's husband. They all gather in front of the church and celebrate the weekly holiday. Molly sits with her sisters, Minnie and Rita. It's evident that Minnie, Molly's sister, is very sick and her husband takes care of her, staying by her side. Molly's sisters talk about Ernest, knowing that Molly is attracted to him and wants to marry him. They believe that Ernest is genuinely interested in Molly and not just after her money. Rita hopes that Molly will marry Ernest and be happy with him. At the end of the day, Ernest is with Molly in the car, and he proposes to her. She accepts, and they get married. They have a grand wedding, and everyone in the town is happy for them. Some time later, Minnie, Molly's sister, passes away. During the funeral, Ernest learns from Hill that Minnie's husband was not concerned about her health, hoping that she would die and he would inherit all her properties. According to Minnie's will, her personal properties were supposed to be distributed among her sisters, but her husband, Sammy, took everything for himself. Years later, everyone gathers at Molly's house, and Lazy, Molly's mother, is sleeping and dreaming of an owl attacking her. Molly wakes up, concerned for her mother's well-being, and tells her mother that she dreamt of an owl, which signifies that death is near for them. She blames their misfortunes on the fact that they married white men and their mixed-blood children. As time passes, their tribe will die out, and none of them will remain. While they are talking, I, Molly's sister, enter the scene, appearing drunk and unaware. I confront Byron, Ernest's brother, because I want to marry him, but he refuses. It is revealed that Byron and I were in a relationship. Ernest takes his brother, Byron, away from the situation to calm him down. After some time, I am sitting with my mother, and both of us are calmer. Ernest comes and tells my mother that Byron will take her home. They leave together, and the next day, the officer enters Molly's place and informs her that I, her sister, have been killed. She sees her sister's body in front of her, and then there is a tribal meeting where the leader informs the tribe that someone named Charlie was killed by the tribe the previous day. And today she, the speaker, was also killed. Both of them were killed under mysterious circumstances, in addition to the 24 other tribe members who were previously killed, and no one knows who killed them. The leader states that the reason behind these murders is that the culprits are white people, some of whom married girls from the tribe, while others work for members of the tribe. They pretend to be their friends but are actually greedy for their wealth. Here, Hill interrupts and announces a reward of $1,000 for anyone who can provide information about the current killer. He informs the leader and everyone present that Molly's sister has hired a private investigator to investigate her sister's murder. They also agree to send someone named Mac Pride to Washington to report to the Bureau of Indian Affairs about what is happening to the tribe, and ask them to send investigators from their side to look into the crimes that have occurred. The next day, Ernest is with Molly, and they buy a coffin for her sister, referring to the speaker. Then they all go to the lawyer and find out that the speaker's wealth will be distributed among Molly and Rita. Molly's sister erupts in anger, and Ernest learns that Sammy married Rita after Minnie's death and continues to control Rita's assets, just as he took over Minnie's wealth before. Then Ernest takes Molly and goes to the train station to welcome the investigator, Byron, who will be responsible for investigating my murder. At the same time, Mac Pride leaves his house after renewing his appearance to go to Washington and report to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, as requested by the tribal leader. However, suddenly he is attacked by unknown individuals. They suffocate him and stab him multiple times until he dies. The next day, Molly and Ernest meet the investigator, Byron, and learn from him that I was pregnant before I died. He also tells them that he noticed Smith, who is actively searching for any information about the killer. Afterwards, Ernest meets his uncle, Hill, and tells him about what happened. He asks Hill if the investigator, Byron, mentioned Byron's name. Hill says that he didn't mention it. Then Ernest decides to go to Blackie and asks him to kill Smith and his wife, Rita. Ernest carries out his uncle's instructions and meets Blackie, giving him a message from his uncle. But Blackie doesn't like the idea. The amount that Hill will pay is suggested to Ernest, that he steals a car and sells it, and then he will benefit from the insurance money of the car. He says that this matter is a secret between them, and his uncle doesn't know anything about it. Ernest convinces Blackie with his words, and he agrees. That same night, Blackie goes to Ernest's house and steals the car. The next day, Ernest and Molly are at the doctor's clinic, and they learn from him that Hill bought a new medicine to treat diabetes called insulin. The doctor tells Molly that the medicine is very expensive, and Hill arranged to get it specifically for Molly. At the same time, the police arrest Blackie while he is in Ernest's car. After that, Hill goes to Ernest, takes him with his car to his house, and there he explodes. He asks Ernest to kneel down, and then Hill punishes Ernest in an ancient Masonic way. Hill reveals that he knew about the agreement between Ernest and Blackie regarding the car theft. Hill tells Ernest that Blackie was captured, and he confessed to everything, but he managed to resolve the matter with the authorities and asked them not to mention Ernest's name in the investigations. Hill tells him that they won't be able to get rid of Smith, who is investigating a murder case. Hill tells Ernest that he must control Molly, his wife, because she requested a private investigator to investigate her sister's murder, and if she does that, all of Hill's plans will be ruined. The focus shifts to all the murders that are happening to the tribe members, as Hill wants to take over their properties indirectly. Hill tells Ernest that he loves the Indians, but their time is over, and their oil should belong to him. He won't allow anyone to ruin his plan, and anyone who executes it will have two options. Ernest agrees with Hill's plan and tells him that he will carry out everything they ask him to do exactly. The next day, Ernest goes with Byron to the phone and kills the investigator, Byrne, whom Molly hired. After that, Hill takes Ernest, and they go to meet a gang leader named Charlie. Hill asks Charlie to blow up Smith's house and his wife, Rita. Charlie tells him that he doesn't have the necessary dynamite for this mission. So Hill tells him that there is a person named Kirby who specializes in explosives and can fulfill his request. Hill agrees, and he asks Charlie to bring one of his assistants named John. He asks Ernest to find Kirby and set a meeting with him. The next day, the doctor goes to Molly's clinic to give her the insulin injection. However, Molly refuses because she doesn't trust the doctor and asks Ernest to give her the injection himself. She also asks him to buy the insulin on his own because she no longer trusts anyone around her. Later, the doctor returns to his clinic and finds Hill waiting for him with his friend Henry. Hill asks the doctor to examine Henry and make sure he is in good health. This is because Hill has taken out a life insurance policy on Henry, who owes him a lot of money. The doctor informs them that Henry is very depressed and trying to commit suicide, because his wife is having an affair with another man named Roy. Hill advises them to handle the situation carefully, but Henry goes to Roy's store and they get into a fight. Hill tells Ernest that Henry will be the one to kill Roy and warns him to stay away from his wife. Afterwards, Henry goes to the supervisor of his financial affairs and asks him for additional money. However, the supervisor refuses and they argue. Hill and Ernest arrive and take Henry back home. Ernest is surprised by Hill's interest in Henry, and Hill tells him that Henry owes him $25,000, and that he has also taken out a life insurance policy on himself for the same amount. If Henry dies before the policy matures, Hill will receive the insurance money. After a while, Lizzie, Molly's mother, dies and Molly is very sad about her mother's death. Then, Hill invites Molly and Ernest to dinner, and Molly tells Hill that they must get rid of the murderers as soon as possible. She also mentions that Mac Bird has disappeared and no one knows if he traveled to Washington to report to the Bureau of Indian Affairs or not. On top of that, the investigator she hired has also disappeared, and Molly doesn't know that Hill is the one behind their disappearances. Hill tells her that she should let the police investigate the matter, and they will surely find the murderers. The next day, Hill asks Ernest to find someone to kill Henry, so that Hill can benefit from the life insurance money and collect his share. Hill also tells Ernest that the death should appear as a suicide, and he goes to John, and they agree that he will kill Henry in exchange for a very large sum of money. John agrees, and they inform Ernest that Henry is a wine merchant. John starts getting close to Henry and befriends him until one day when they are out together, John pulls out a gun and shoots Henry, killing him. At night, Hill meets Ernest and they argue because John shot Henry in the head from behind, making it look like an accident. Ernest tells Hill that he warned John not to hit Henry in the head from the front, but John hid and hit him from behind. Hill asks him to escape because Henry was killed, and the police will be looking for him since he was the only one who had a disagreement with Henry before he died. But Roy tells Hill that Ernest did not kill Henry, and he refuses to escape because if he does, it would prove his guilt. After a few months, Ernest meets John, and they agree that Uncle Hill wants to go to Kia and ask him to blow up the Smith's house with Rita. John writes everything he says and sends a message to Hill. At night, Ernest is suspicious in the house, and suddenly he hears a very loud explosion. He quickly takes Ernest out of the house and realizes that the Smith's house has exploded, leaving a pile of ashes. and that Smith and Rita died in the explosion. Molly grieves over her sister's death and then travels to Washington with a delegation from the tribe. There, Molly asks the state governor to protect the Indians and tells him that the police are not interested in investigating murder crimes. At the same time, Hill gives Ernest the insulin, along with a vial containing a certain substance. Hill explains to Ernest that this substance will calm Molly's nerves and help her overcome her ordeal and sadness. Ernest convinces him with his words, and he starts injecting Molly with insulin after mixing the substance that his uncle gave him. However, Ernest does not know that this substance slowly kills, to make it appear that Molly died due to her illness. At this time, Ernest inherits her money and properties, and thus Hill gains control over all of Molly's assets because she is the sole heir to her mother and sisters. The days pass, and Molly's health condition improves. One day, someone knocks on the door, and Ernest opens it to find Roy himself, who introduces himself and tells him that he is from the Federal Investigation Bureau. He instructs John to investigate the murder crimes occurring in the tribe, especially the murder case. "I'm Molly's sister," and she tells Tom to meet Molly to talk to her, but Tom tells him that Molly is very sick and asks him to come another time when her health improves. At night, Ernest meets Hill and tells him about what happened. He is scared and terrified, so he tries to appear composed to avoid raising any suspicions. The next day, Tom meets Hill and asks for his opinion on the murder crimes happening in the tribe. Hill tells him that he is certain the perpetrators are outsiders from their city, possibly of African descent. Afterward, Hill decides to get rid of the criminals he is dealing with to eliminate any evidence against him. He accepts Black's offer at the cinema. Black has just been released from prison after serving his sentence for stealing Ernest's car. Hill asks him to rob the bank and take all the money as compensation for the time Black spent in prison because of Ernest. At the same time, Hill informs the police about the bank robbery, hoping that Black will be killed during the arrest, thus getting rid of him. However, by a stroke of luck, Black doesn't get killed and is arrested during the robbery. Then, Hill meets Kirby, who is in charge of blowing up Smith's house, and Rita, who is involved in a big gift shop robbery in the city. On the designated day for the robbery, Hill meets the shop owner and tells him that he has information that his shop will be robbed tonight. But the shop owner is waiting for him and kills him. As for Charlie, he is drunk and causes a car accident, resulting in his death. With that, Hill imagines that he has gotten rid of all the criminals he hired to commit the murder crimes. Then Hill meets Ernest and tells him that there is a high possibility of him getting caught, but reassures him that his lawyers will defend him and he will come out innocent. However, it is important for him to remain composed and not confess to anything. Hill asks Ernest to sign over his properties to him so that if Ernest gets arrested, their properties will be safe. Ernest agrees to Hill's request, trusting his words. It appears that Detective Tom is secretly observing and following their actions, and at night, Tom laughs with a team of undercover detectives who were monitoring Hill and Ernest, all the suspects in the city. Tom tells his team that he met an old man from the city's residence and asked him if he knew any information about Molly's murder. "Molly is my sister." The old man told him that he saw me with Byron and another person named Kelsey, and they were all together leaving the bar. It was evident that Molly was drunk and unconscious. Then they got into the car and left the place. As soon as Tom finishes talking to him, his colleagues pass the message to search for Kelsey and arrest him. The next day, Kelsey is apprehended, and they interrogate him. He confesses to everything and provides them with all the details. Then the police arrest Ernest and interrogate him. Ernest is taken aback because both of them deceived him. Then Tom tells Ernest that his uncle Hill took advantage of him and involved him in his crimes. He asks Ernest to tell the truth and promises to intervene in the case to protect him. Ernest is convinced by Tom's words and confesses to all the crimes committed by his uncle Hill. Then John is arrested. Initially, John denies all the charges against him, but as soon as he sees Ernest in front of him, he confesses and says that Ernest informed him through a message from his uncle Hill, asking him to go to Kirby to make him blow up Smith's house and his wife. Then Ernest asks them to take care of Molly because she is very ill and needs care. They agree to his request, take Molly, and admit her to the hospital. Then the police take Ernest and transport him to a distant location outside the city to provide him with protection from Hill. The next day, Hill is arrested, but it is only a formality to proceed with his trial for his crimes. The days pass, and Molly's health improves, and she is able to walk again. The day of the trial arrives, and Ernest insists on giving his testimony. However, Hill's lawyer requests to speak with Ernest privately because he is his client and has been missing for 2 months, suspecting that Ernest may have been subjected to torture to force him to confess to things he did not do. The judge orders the trial to be adjourned for another day, and Ernest is escorted out of the courtroom under police protection, and at night, Ernest meets with the lawyer at his Uncle Hill's house. He tells the lawyer that if he testifies against his Uncle Hill, the police will drop charges against him and he will be sentenced to prison as well. The lawyer asks Ernest to testify in court that the police tortured and coerced him into testifying against his uncle. Ernest agrees to the lawyer's suggestion, and the next day he spends time with Molly, happy that she has recovered and regained her health. He tells her that the police beat and tortured him to testify against his uncle, and that his uncle is innocent. He assures her that he will testify alongside him. Later, the police come to take Ernest for his trial. They mention that Tom has accused him of killing Smith and Rita, and he will be taken to jail. The judge then hears Kelsey's testimony, stating that Hill asked him to kill Molly, who is Ernest's sister, and that Byron, Ernest's brother, was with them on the day of the incident. They took Molly to the bar and made her drink excessively until she passed out. Then they took her to the woods, where Kelsey killed her. Molly is present in the courtroom and becomes emotional upon hearing this revelation. The following day, one of Molly's children and Ernest's daughter dies, causing Ernest to grieve for his lost child. He attends the funeral and meets Molly, but she refuses to speak to him. Afterwards, Ernest returns to prison and tells his Uncle Hill that he will testify against him to get out of jail and reunite with his family. Hill informs him that the investigators are deceiving him and that he will still be imprisoned. However, Ernest remains determined, and on the day of the trial, he confesses to everything and states that Hill committed all the crimes to seize the tribe's assets. Molly is shocked to learn that Ernest was involved with Hill in the murder of her sisters during their break. Molly sits with Ernest and asks about the substance they were injecting along with insulin. She leaves without answering, leaving Ernest surprised because he had no knowledge of the substance his uncle gave her, which was actually being injected into Molly. Sometime later, there is a radio drama about the Osage tribe, and it is revealed that Byron, Ernest's brother, has been acquitted of the charge of killing Molly's sister, because he caught me only so that Kelsey would kill her. Despite the objections of the tribe's people to this verdict, the government did not care about them. We know that Hill was sentenced to a long prison term, but he was released after serving half the sentence due to his good conduct and behavior. He also paid many bribes to officials to secure his release. We know that Hill did not return to live with the Osage tribe and died in a nursing home. Ernest, on the other hand, was also sentenced to life imprisonment but received a pardon after 5 years. He returned to the Osage tribe and worked with his brother Byron in a car repair shop. Molly separated from Ernest and married someone else, and she passed away at the age of 50. After a few years, a group of tribal members appears, celebrating the anniversary of their victory over all the foreigners who wanted to plunder their wealth. The film ends, but don't forget to subscribe to the Happy Dreams channel on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and we wish you happy dreams.